Intern, Level 4, by n4thy. Chapter 2. On Monday in the principal's office, May and Tony were present alongside Flash and his parents. The atmosphere was tense and Peter was uncertain about the forthcoming proceedings. Principal Moroter began, "We are here today to address the matter concerning the incident between Eugene and Peter during last Friday field trip." Tony expressed his disdain dismissively. "You're referring to the aggression that Peter endured," he stated. A hush descended upon the room, Flash's parents casting a glare of lethal intent toward Tony. Yet the unspoken truth hung in the air, the untouchable status of a billionaire. Peter almost laughed. It was nice that Tony took time to go to his fucking school to protect him from a bully, despite being aware that Peter was capable of doing it on his own. That's why sometimes he had to refrain the urge to call the man Dad. "Well, Mr. Stark, that's what we will find out. My understanding is that no one saw what happened." That was the wrong thing to say to a technology genius. Tony was already putting his phone screen upward in the principal's table. The holograms of Peter and Flash appeared, and Peter physically flinched when everyone heard what he was accused of last Friday. May was immediately with her hand over her mouth to stop the shock. She knew it was bad since her nephew was injured, but this is low. "I think there is no doubt here, Principal," Tony said. "Peter is my intern because he is an incredible kid, so smart that I'm sure one day he will be beyond myself." The billionaire gave Peter a soft smile. "He works for me because he deserves to. This boy," he glared at Flash, "made some serious and dirty accusations to my personal intern inside my company and proceeded to physically assault him. This is the topic here." There was a silence. No one dared to contest Tony's words. "And Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Eugene's actions are inappropriate at the least. We have a strong policy against bullying and physical abuse." Mr. Thompson looked incredulous. "Boys will be boys," he tried. "And cowards will be cowards," Mr. Stark smirked. "Do you think you can come here and throw money to do harm to my boy?" Mr. Thompson stands. "I think you're confused." Tony once more reached to the phone. "I know for a fact that you like to throw money around to protect your little delinquent. I'm here today only with the truth. Want to take a look?" He shook his phone in the other man's direction. Mr. Thompson clearly wasn't going to buy that fight. He would lost it before it even began. Peter wondered what Tony had gathered against the other man. "Gentlemen, please," Mr. Moroter intervened. Both Mr. Thompson and Mr. Stark nodded to the principal's word, but were still glaring at each other. "This is the last thing I would like to do as a principal, but I have no choice. Eugene, I'm afraid you're not welcomed anymore in this school." "What?" Both Flash and Peter squeaked, but only Peter continues to talk. "I don't want him to be expelled, just to leave me alone. Leave everyone alone, just stop being a jerk. And get a suspension or get kicked off of the decathlon team and other teams or something." Flash and Mr. Stark were shocked. "Ruse," Tony began. "This is going to be really bad for his life, Mr. Stark. I don't want to be the reason for this." Principal Moroter was touched, but he needed to say, "You're not the reason, Peter. You're a victim of Eugene's actions, just like he is now. He drew this to himself." "I didn't want him to fall," Flash said, desperate. "I mean, I know what I said was bad and wrong, but I promise I didn't imagine he would fall. I didn't know he was feeling unwell." Mr. Moroter sighed. "Mr. Stark and Mrs. Parker, are you going to proceed with legal actions?" Peter looked at May and Tony with pleading eyes. "Please don't." May sighed. She already expected that, but was not pleased. "Honey, this is not what he deserves. He hurt you." Peter just gave her his puppy eyes. Tony and May nodded at each other. They would do anything for Peter. "Fine, but I want the suspension," Tony said. "And you're still so banned from my company. And I will check, personally, the suspension and banned from every team in this school." He looked at Flash with anger. "I don't want you nowhere near my kid. I don't have his compassion." Flash looked at Tony's eyes for the first time the whole morning. "Yes, sir." During the remainder of their time at the principal's office, the topic of Flash's disciplinary action was thoroughly deliberated. Peter acknowledged that Flash's conduct warranted expulsion, yet he was reluctant to be the reason for such a severe measure. From a pragmatic standpoint, Peter knew that, had Flash targeted someone else, the outcome could have been fatal or caused grave injury. Fortunately, Peter was unharmed. So he was content with Flash's suspension from both school and any clubs, and the stipulation that any further infractions would result in Flash's expulsion. When they were exiting the office, Flash attempted to talk to Peter, but May and Tony were quick to intervene. "What do you want?" May's voice carried an unusual edge of anger. Despite trembling, Flash mustered the courage to meet her gaze. "I want to apologise." Peter exchanged a meaningful glance with his parents. That's what they are, aren't they? And approached Flash, maintaining a cautious distance. Flash struggled to articulate his thoughts and maintain eye contact, but he eventually succeeded. "I don't know why you stood up for me, but I'm grateful," he said, pausing to gather his thoughts. "I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't actually want you to fall. Definitely didn't want you to get hurt. I'm sorry for what I said too." Peter considered the apology. Whether Flash was sincere or merely frightened was unclear, but Peter decided to accept it nonetheless. "Apology accepted. Just make sure it doesn't happen again, to anyone." Flash uttered a quiet, "Yeah," nodded and walked away. Throughout the exchange, Peter could feel May and Tony's restraint from confronting the other kid. "I don't like that kid," Tony remarked. May concurred with a nod. "Neither do I." Peter couldn't help but smile, reassured by their support and the notion they would always be by his side. Entering his first class of the day, Peter braced for a barrage of inquiries regarding the events at the tower. Instead, he was met with some curious glances, but no questions. He located MJ and Ned and took the seat beside them. "Why is everyone acting weird?" Peter mused. After the incident, he had spent the entire weekend at the tower, accompanied by May. Tony had advised him to stay off his phone. Peter knew he was fearing distressing news, so he let Tony confiscate the item. Peter understood Tony's concern and did not object to the limited communication with his friends. "Dude," Ned exclaimed. "Happy terrified everyone after Mr. Stark took you to the penthouse." "I was nearly frightened myself," MJ added. "What?" Peter inquired. "We all went into a conference room. Happy distributed NDAs, sternly implying that any rumours heard should remain within the tower's walls if we wanted to attend any respected college in the future," Ned elaborated. MJ's expression hinted that she was amazed, probably got a lot of inspiration for her sketchbook. "I doubt they'll ask you anything, except perhaps during decathlon practice, since everyone was present. It wouldn't be disclosing anything new." Peter sighed in resignation. "I guess it could be worse." "And what happened with Flash?" Ned asked. "He's been suspended, removed from the decathlon team, and barred from participating in other activities." He didn't want to explain the whole thing. MJ regarded Peter with a knowing look, but apparently decided to drop it, but then smirked. "I told you your dad would have your back." Peter felt a warm flush of embarrassment, but smiled nonetheless. "Yeah, he did." Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing. Have a lovely day.